Okay, let's see. Gonna try this again to finish this. Let's see where it takes us.
When I was a boy, I had a Time Life book called The Birds. In it was a section showing the few U.S. species all lost to extinction. The great auk, the Carolina parakeet, the heath hen. The biggest picture, though, was the woolly mammoth.
The woolly mammoth has been extinct for about 4,000 years, but is now on the verge of being resurrected in a modified version. Harvard professor George Church claims his team within the next 2 years will be able to create a hybrid embryo with an elephant and mammoth DNA. The scientists are likely to be many years away from producing a living so-called mammothant, but a successful attempt of creating an embryo could just be around the corner. Church says this elephant-mammoth hybrid would not just have the mammoth's distinctive long shaggy hair, but also smaller ears and blood better suited for cold weather. Church believes these qualities could actually help save the endangered Asian elephant, but others worry it's unethical. The scientists hope to actually grow the embryo in an artificial womb, hoping to avoid risking the life of female elephant that is already endangered.
Would you drink human breast milk that came from a cow? In suburban Beijing, scientists have created a growing herd of over 300 cloned and genetically modified cows that can produce milk containing the same health properties as human breast milk. Dr. Li Ning, professor at China's Agricultural University, said that the genetically modified cow milk is 80% the same as human breast milk. Ning explains that the modified milk contains many of the same antibodies and proteins that are good for our health, can improve our immune systems, and can help us fight viruses and bacteria.
It looks like a horse, sounds like a horse, and walks like a horse.
Well, I've been around this since they started here, and they're amazing.
So much so that a retired professional rodeo cowboy will even vouch for them.
They're not creating monsters. These horses are as real and as natural as anything you've ever seen and healthy.
Clint Johnson owns a few Broncos that buck just like the famous horse he used to ride. Like these foals, they are clones, genetic copies made in a lab.
Hundreds of years ago, man decided to breed animals for an intended purpose, whether that was for recreation, for companionship, or for food. Cloning is just another step in that process.
Blake Russell is the CEO of Viagen. His Austin, Texas-based company clones livestock, including cattle, sheep, pigs, and horses.
Cloning is an amazing technology to turbocharge those breeding programs, but is it any more playing God than any of the other technologies?
The company collects tissue samples, preferably from a living animal, and with the DNA from those cells, the lab produces embryo copies through a process called somatic cell transfer.
We named her Chloe, and she's 3 years old, and this is one of the reasons why we clone. We take an animal that wasn't fertile, and obviously she couldn't produce any genetics. She'd been to the national finals 19 times in a row since she was 3 years old, and here we have her back, and we can breed her to whatever we want.
In this case, competitive horses. Viagen's biggest share of customers are people that want to reproduce their polo, rodeo, or competition riding horses. The company claims its success rate in getting cloned embryos to newborn animals has climbed, but admits the process isn't perfect. Cloning competitive horses is a touchy subject. Only this year.
Okay, what do they mean isn't perfect? What do you think?
The governing body over equestrian events okayed the use of clones in competitions like the Olympics.
South Korean scientists have created a glow-in-the-dark dog. Need I say more? Yeah, probably. So here's the story. The research team at Seoul National University made a beagle using somatic cell nuclear transfer technology. In other words, they cloned it. Tegan, as they named the fluorescent Fido, was genetically engineered to glow when placed under ultraviolet light.
People think that cloned cats are creepy, but what about a cloned cat that also glows in the dark?
It's an incredible story. Not everybody's happy to hear this, though, that scientists in South Korea cloned a pair of kitties who light up with a fluorescent glow when exposed to ultra.
Well. I guess it's time for a piss break, everybody.
Ultraviolet light glow kitties.
All right, now the question is, what was all this for? Apparently there's a good reason for it. Christy Lustout has the story.
At first glance, these cats look like any normal cat, but there are two big things which make them very different. One, the cats are clones. Two, they glow in the dark. You heard right. When they're put underneath ultraviolet light, they glow a dull red. And it's no accident. Scientists manipulated the donor cat's genetic code, then passed those changes onto the clones.
It's meaningful as we introduce outside genes to transgene.
And we're back.
Germs.
Here we go.
Toxins, and plant growth regulators. Some germs cause cholera, others cause typhoid fever, plague, and such diseases. Toxins are special poisons produced by other germs. They do the harm in diseases like food poisoning and diphtheria.
Not saying I believe that there's a such thing as zombies or anything like that. Not in the classic sense. But this is an interesting possibility as in looking of what we just saw. Okay, so this is kind of a long intro here.
Hell fills up, the dead will walk the earth. Means that keeping them around, even locked up, is not a smart idea. Keep in mind that zombies may become smarter over time. They travel in packs and depend on their natural
Well, everybody, it seems like they took down the video I was actually looking for here. Gee, I wonder what that could be. I wonder why. Why, oh why, why? We'll just do the wonderful world of...
Welcome back to New World Next Week. I'm James Corbett of CorbettReport.com.
And I'm James Evan Pilato of MediaMonarchy.com. The alt-media purge is in full swing. We've got that story, plus the collapse of Western civilization. But first, it is raining on the weed parade. Trump names rabid cannabis prohibitionist as drug czar. This article via the Free Thought Project, in a move likely indicative of a coming resurgence in the long-running war on drugs. The Trump administration has appointed extreme marijuana prohibitionist Pennsylvania Representative Tom Marino to serve as U.S. drug czar. As drug czar, Marino would be responsible for coordinating drug control strategy and federal government funding of the drug war. Marino is known as a rabid hardliner on drug policy, going so far as to proclaim that non-violent drug offenders should be placed in a hospital/prison. Congressman Marino is set to resign his position in the House to direct the Office of National Drug Policy Control, which advises President Trump on drug policy. So this is actually a two-parter. Second part of this story goes to a different department, with new DHS Secretary John Kelly saying marijuana is not a factor in the drug war. This via Fortune. Department of Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly said this past Sunday that marijuana is not a factor in the war on drugs, arguing that the biggest problems are found in other substances. Quote, marijuana is not a factor in the drug war, end quote. Kelly told NBC News' Chuck Todd on Meet the Press when asked how marijuana legalization would impede or help the drug war fight. So that was Sunday, but somehow by Tuesday the song remained the same. Homeland Security will continue to enforce marijuana laws via the Weed blog. DHS Secretary John Kelly says that the Department of Homeland Security will continue to enforce marijuana laws and make marijuana a major part of its criminal enforcement efforts. This has been the fear of many activists, industry professionals, consumers. As reported by the Washington Times, John...
Okay, people, what do you think? Flip-flopping much around with what's actually going on? Yes, I know, I can't really spell, because when I type, I look like an idiot. But, oh well, it happens. It's YouTube. There are plenty of idiots out there.
Your spy cam is getting smarter. Bots now outnumber humans online, and why it might be a good idea not to give away your DNA. All that and a whole lot more coming up on Tech News Today.
This is Twit. Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
Is for like, oh, how does my outfit look? And you know, and I question I did not get one, but I think then like there's a pet cam, Like that's more of what I think is, it's like, okay, well, I would like to see what my dog is doing when I'm not at home, but then you might also collect other information on that, and that
sure.
More. Yeah.
Sure. Burke says the cloud-based part about this is the possible issue. Yeah, and that's a really good point, and I think that's actually a big part of what Megan is saying, is that it's taking that video and it's sending it to the cloud, which has the benefit, if you're getting it as a security camera, of allowing you to kind of be notified about these things while you're out and about. Oh, hey, it recognized, facial recognition, it recognized this person and it doesn't match anyone that's in the index, so it sends me an alert. It allows these really cool things, but yet again, it's yet another vector for taking very personal information from its users and putting it in the hands of mega corporations. And what are the long-term ramifications of that, the potential issues from that? Pretty big.
Yeah, and Mike in our chat room says, remember the lady in The Sixth Sense who put Lysol in her kids' food and she was caught by the nanny cam? Good point, Mike.
Great. Thanks for taking it there, Mike.
You can watch live, by the way, too, twit.tv/live. And if you want to comment, it's not just Burke who gets to comment on his index cards. You can, too. So It's true. I hope that never happens. And I think it's too late at that point, really. Like, you got it on camera. Great. Anyway, let's move on.
Better than not.
Okay, so now I'm...
Okay, let's check this one out.
As the cholera epidemic in Yemen could reach 300,000 cases within 6 months. Representative of the UN Health Agency has warned of an extremely high death toll, describing the outbreak as unprecedented. At least 242 people have died of cholera over the past 3 weeks alone. Tens of thousands of others have been diagnosed with the disease. Humanitarian organizations say that Saudi Arabia's war and its crippling sea and naval blockade are to blame for the humanitarian catastrophe. According to the UN, one child dies every 10 minutes from preventable causes in the Arab country. This is the U.S. is set to give the go-ahead for a huge controversial arms deal with Saudi Arabia.
And staying in South Sudan, humanitarian agencies are scaling up their efforts in response to a crippling water shortage. Many South Sudanese fleeing violence in the Upper Nile state are without access to clean water. The recent deployment of additional UN peacekeepers has enabled humanitarian workers to resume aid efforts. However, with the onset of the rainy season, the threat of outbreaks of diarrhea and cholera is increasing.
Okay, we're going in to see the rest of this here, and after this little bit, we're going to end this live stream, and hopefully we'll see who comments.
Attack occurred on the demonstrations. Protesters are fed up with food and medical shortages, as well as the failing economy. The victim is in the hospital with second-degree burns and several stab wounds. President Maduro has condemned the attack.
That person was set on fire, beaten up. They stabbed him 4 times. They hit him and nearly lynched him, just because someone shouted out that he was a Chavista.
There were protests on Sunday in several Brazilian states against the government of President Michel Temer, following allegations he took bribes from a government contractor, prompting a Supreme Court investigation. The rallies were called by trade unions and left-wing activist groups who want an end to Temer's government, new elections, and a halt to pension and labor law reforms.
This is a shame for our country. Brazil's bleeding with corruption, and now it's clear it's reached the highest office of the country.
Now Yemeni protesters have poured into the streets of the capital, Sana'a, denouncing the U.S. and Saudi Arabia over 2 years of death and destruction brought on their war-ravaged nation. They also held a ballistic missile attack launched by Yemeni forces against Riyadh just hours before the arrival of U.S. President Donald Trump to the Saudi capital. Now, Trump is visiting Riyadh as the first stop of his maiden international tour.
Okay. Well, we know he made history, news as always. And that'll be it for our stream today. We'll be checking out the topics soon. And Don't forget to check out our friends at Stay Negative, The Geek Room, and peace.